Okay, real good. Let's go ahead and start our actual agenda with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Recording in progress.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, you've all had a chance to take a look at the regular agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the agenda.
Thanks, John. Second, Bob. Kim?
Councilmember Carr.
Aye.
Councilmember Rod.
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer.
Aye.
Councilmember Tufti.
Aye.
Mayor Huber.
Aye. All had a chance to take a look at our bill list and the things on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve our consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Great. Second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Bob. Kim?
Councilmember Carr.
Aye.
Councilmember Rod.
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer.
Aye.
Councilmember Tufti.
Aye.
Mayor Huber.
Aye. All right, let's turn to our city engineer, Brad Reifsteck. Brad, do we have you here?
We do.
Oh.
Good evening, members of the council. Can you hear me and see me?
We can, very well. That's fantastic. Our clerk is incredibly multi-talented. Nice job, Kim. Brad, why don't you go ahead and launch into our first one? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Mayor, members of the council, my first item tonight is we're seeking a motion to adopt resolution 2023-12 declaring costs and setting the public assessment hearing for the Hunai Avenue 115th Street in Hillcrest Court street improvement project. As you know, this project was petitioned by residents living along these streets. The improvements include street reclamation, a new bituminous mat, new gravel shoulders, and some restoration. As you know as well, the City Council adopted the feasibility report for this project on March 7th, 2023. We ordered the public improvements for the project following the notice of public hearing at the April 4th meeting. The City Council approved the plan specifications and ordered the advertisements for bid. On May 2nd, and the bids were received just a week or two ago, or on June 8th of this month. The low bidder, is OMG Midwest Inc. With the bid just shy of $300,000, it was $299,873.30 to be exact. And so we will not consider awarding those bids until we get through this special assessment process, most likely at the meeting in September. Again, the project cost to be incurred for the improvement is estimated at just over $350,000. Now, this project cost includes the construction costs I just mentioned, plus the engineering and a little bit in there for financing, depending on how the city would choose to finance it, whether it's bonding or just using their reserves. Again, using these dollar amounts and the city's contribution for this project is typically 10%, and so I know that's quite a bit different than what we had proposed in the feasibility report, which is around $100,000. The bid came in really low, and we felt that 10% is something that we could manage for this project and not have the assessments be too high. So with that, the bid amount for the project cost amount of $350,000, the city's contribution of roughly $35,000, the buildable unit assessments for this project is estimated at just over $12,000. So again, we're following the Minnesota State Statute 429 process, and so we're here tonight to consider the adoption, consider the public hearing for the adoption of the assessments, and we are proposing for that hearing to be at the August 1st meeting. So with that said, I would be happy to answer any of your questions.
Okay. Just starting off real quick, Brad, do you happen to have the preliminary numbers that you had come up with and juxtapose them against the $299,000 bid? We saved about, this came in about what, $3,000, almost $4,000 light?
Yeah, I want to say I was project costs around $500,000.
Okay,
So we're about $100,000 less than the mayor was estimating with the feasibility report.
okay,
And I believe and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I believe the city's contribution, we talked about 20% at that time, which is roughly about $90,000. And so, again, the city contribution is completely up to the council, but we felt like, our staff felt like the assessments were getting way too high at approximately $18,000 when we did the report. And so we were able to reduce the city's contribution, and of course, the total project cost because the bids came in so well.
yeah, I'm very pleased to see that. That's gonna save everybody some money, and we know that needs to be done. So additional questions, please, gentlemen. Tom? No? Bob?
No.
John? Jeff?
No, typically, do we donate money to road projects?
Brad, do you wanna take that one?
Yeah, so typically, Councilmember Rod, the city does contribute to these projects using city maintenance dollars. The maintenance dollars for this project was again roughly 10% or $35,000. And we have done this in the past for similar projects.
Yeah, almost always. Tom?
Yeah, and it started a few years ago when we decided, hey, if we can help a little bit with seal coating that we would spend anyway, some pothole patching, some of the stuff anyway. And we don't have much maintenance on it then for a couple of years. We save some money that way, so we figure it's a win-win for everybody, kind of.
Yeah, and we feel, I mean, to Tom's point, which is a good one, those maintenance funds were essentially dedicated to that roadway anyway, right? So Tom makes a good point. You put them into that initial project, you save some money for a few years, and then as that road ages, you start to look at, repeating the process and overlay or that
And a
type of
thicker
thing.
road, and a better road.
Thicker road and a better road. That's right. So, this one's a pretty common sense, and you are looking for what here, Kim?
Motion to adopt the resolution.
All right, real good. Looks like we've got a resolution in our hands here, 2023-12. Can I have a motion to approve to set the assessment hearing?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Giefer and Mr. Tufty. Thank you, gentlemen.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Rock?
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer?
Aye.
Councilmember Tufti?
Aye.
Mayor Huber?
All right. Thank you, Kim. All right, Brad, looks like we're reviving an oldie but a goodie here, the Knollwood Drive Street Improvement Project. Looks like we have an older feasibility report, and I also would like you to discuss real quick here the initial assessment roll and how that's generated and how that initial assessment roll becomes the final assessment roll that's presented to the project, the neighbors of the project at that assessment hearing. So if you can just please first go over the feasibility report and what we're looking at here tonight, and then just a quick discussion on, again, assessment rolls in the beginning and assessment rolls when you have that meeting at the end.
Yeah, so Mayor, members of the council, this was a feasibility report, actually a road improvement project that was petitioned by residents living on 105th Street, Inwood Avenue, and Knollwood Drive. The residents petitioned the city for roadway improvements. We did go through the process of the city ordering a feasibility report for this project. And at a certain point, the city did adopt the feasibility report for all 3 streets. It wasn't, we did not exclude, I guess, Knollwood Drive at that moment, but we did not move forward with Knollwood Drive at the public hearing stage. So the feasibility report is still valid, I guess, for all 3 of these streets. And typically what we do in these situations when a project does not move forward through the public hearing process is that we can use these feasibility reports as long as nothing has substantially changed the condition of the improvements. We can still use that feasibility report. I guess the only caveat there is that I did revise the cost because the cost that we used in the, I think it was the 2020 feasibility report, were a little outdated because of the assessment hearing, or the assessments that were originally computed in 2019 or 2020 were based on construction costs back at that time. And so the assessments were probably quite a bit lower, because we typically, when we do these types of projects as a package, meaning if all three of these roadways would have moved forward, we don't separate them into separate individual mock assessments. We look at them as a project as a whole, and that is part of the city policy, that we look at these projects as a whole project, not just an individual street. And so I think that's probably the main difference that we're seeing in the assessments from back in 19 till now. We've taken away 105th Street, and then with Avenue, they're not moving forward, and now we're just dealing with Knollwood Drive. So I think that explains the discrepancy in the costs and the mock assessments for each project. So again, if we move forward with this, we're looking tonight to adopt Resolution 2023-13 in ordering preparations of the plans and specifications, and then public scheduling a public improvement hearing for the Knollwood Drive area. So I hope that answers your questions. I'd be happy to answer any other questions the council would have.
Actually, Brad, my question is a little more pointed than that, to be honest. What I want to know very, very quickly is how the assessed units, the preliminary assessed units were computed. And will those be recomputed via you and our planner in order to have a finished assessment roll if the project moves forward to the assessment public hearing?
Yeah, so each lot that is a buildable unit, of course, is described in our policy is any lot that is adjacent to the roadway being assessed has a minimum of 330 feet and a minimum of 5 acres. Now, beyond that, we can take a look at lots that are larger than that and have more frontage than that. But sometimes you have wetlands or other land restricting areas for a buildable unit. Now, Jennifer and I can go through each lot one by one to determine if there are more divisible units, I guess, on this road project. But for now, we just simply looked at the area and the length of the roadway to determine the assessments for this project.
Sure. One additional question. For example, a homeowner may disagree that a lot is buildable, or may disagree that a section of land is buildable. For example, perhaps the cul-de-sac would violate our ordinances. We have limits on cul-de-sacs in terms of their length, in terms of access for fire equipment, that type of thing. If a homeowner had a question like that, where would be the proper time to sort of lodge some concern? Is that at the assessment hearing? Is that at the public hearing? When is that, Brad? When does that happen?
It doesn't hurt to express those opinions at the first hearing, which is the public hearing. Right. But those decisions are finally decided at the special assessment hearing. Jennifer and I can certainly meet with the property owners and review a certain lot if somebody's concerned about them. But those decisions really come at the assessment hearing, which is 3 or 4 steps down the road here.
Sure, but I just want to establish in everyone's mind here, both in the audience and amongst the council, that there is a process to look at how these assessments take place, and there's a process to determine as we move forward down to the assessment hearing, following the 429 process from the state, where people can contest these assessments depending on the land, right?
Correct.
That's what I wanted to know. Other questions, gentlemen? Tom?
Okay, so yeah, and then that's good, and I know it goes forward, but it's obviously good to get some questions out early in the process so that we can flesh them out with you, the residents, and everybody else.
Why we're here.
I talked to Brad before. Brad, how long is Knollwood right now? Is it over a quarter mile or a quarter mile?
Yeah, I'm not even sure it's quite that long, but it's, I don't know the exact length of the town, but I don't think it's quite that long.
No, that's fine.
Our cul-de-sacs are typically 1,000 feet or so.
Yep, okay. So there was a stub put in, as good developers do, development do, and good planners do when land's being developed. There's some land to the north that's kind of landlocked, so we would put a stub in there in case somebody wanted to develop that land. The reason for that is that then they could tie into that and put a road through. And here would be up through Lansing, if anybody wanted, there's like 100 acres to the north of that. Otherwise, it looks like they got a shared driveway or something. I know we talked earlier about that. So we have not abandoned that, have we? Is that still?
No, as far as I'm aware, the easement or right away, you know, I haven't looked into the detail of it. I don't know if it's an easement or a right away, but it still exists.
Yeah, and it was platted that way on purpose, which is good planning. So I guess the only thing I would be concerned with going forward is if somebody wanted to attach to that and this road, the cul-de-sac is not that long, and they could punch a little bit more of a longer cul-de-sac in there, and then have two developed lots. I mean, and we talked earlier, but I think that would be, I'd like your opinion on what that means. You know, if those are assessed flats and they should be assessed at this point. Obviously, if we didn't and that they developed that land and punched a road in all the way up through Lansing, then it wouldn't matter, because they're gonna have to do it to our standards as a paved road, and then it's moot. But I just want your opinion on that.
Brad,
When we get to the
I'm gonna step in for just a second. There are so many guesses and things you don't know in giving that opinion. If you don't wish to give that opinion for professional reasons, I'll understand, because we've already laid out the process for folks to go ahead and bring those concerns up as you move forward. The problem is you probably don't have the information to answer them. If you do, please do, because I'd love to hear it. But if you don't answer it. I don't want guesses.
Well, I don't either. I'm just asking for his opinion
Yep.
later on, so that's giving him my concerns.
Yep.
That's
Nope.
it.
Right, so
Good
so
question.
what I think that, you know, my immediate response would be that, again, we have not, in my time here, we have not assessed the parcel of land that doesn't have the minimum requirements of a lot. And even though we've got access to a bigger lot, we've never assessed the property based on their accessibility to a roadway. I guess what I would say in the future, maybe this is something we can consider, but if that property were to ever develop, the developer would be potentially on the hook for those roadway improvements if we wanted to have them extend Knollwood and redo the cul-de-sac and do all that work. Without looking at it any further, I guess those are my two main opinions on that.
So you'd handle in the development agreement moving forward, correct?
Yeah, you know, right. If there were improvements for that lot, I think a roadway extension would have to be handled through a development agreement.
Right. Okay, real good then. We've laid out the process for homeowners who are concerned about the assessment process and whether or not the land is going to be assessed or not going to be assessed. And I don't know which of those concerns were being expressed, and it doesn't matter because you can get either one of them through this process addressed, through the engineer and the planner, and of course through the council if it becomes necessary. So, real good. I think we've got that answered on those. Tom?
Yeah, the only other question is, why do we, on the resolution, do we have to reference 105th and Inwood if we're only doing Knollwood?
Yeah.
It's kind of confusing.
Well, yeah, so the original feasibility report contained all these streets.
No, I get that.
Having to go all the way back and redoing the entire report again, we're just adopting a revised report, even though we're not moving forward with 105th and Inwood Avenue.
So that's the way you think it should be written then?
That's correct.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'd have to go all the way back and do another report.
Okay.
Jeff?
Kind of tacking onto that. So, did you re-engage with the residents on 105th and Inwood to just see if anything's changed in their level of interest? Or, I can't remember what the numbers were from before, or was it significantly low numbers that you didn't think it was worthwhile to see if they were interested? Because 3 years is a fair amount of time, and then things might
Yeah,
change.
so the original petition, I think there was over 65% of the people on Knollwood petitioned for the roadway improvements. And the champion of that petition, in 2020 decided to not move forward. And so, we didn't move forward. And now she's come forward again and says now she wants to move forward. So, that is, you know, the real reason we're here tonight is because of the communication had with that one resident. Now, we haven't gone back out and reached out to all the petitioners or everybody who has signed the petition to figure out if they're, still in favor of the project or not. I think that would be a difficult task for us to do. We're just assuming, again, that the resident that championed the original petition, she's engaged with her neighbors and everybody that has signed the petition is willing to move forward.
And of course, you have the public hearing process coming up, and each of those individual homeowners are noticed of that public hearing, correct?
That is correct. That is the best way to get folks engaged, to come out and voice their opinions one way or the other, and we can decide, as a city or the council can decide whether or not we want to move forward with the project or not.
Yeah, that's the way I see it on this one, because we are kind of reviving this feasibility study before it's gone. Yeah, because we have that 3-year limit, is to hold that public hearing and pay very, very careful attention to what's said there. Make sure that we have those folks and have that old signature sheet there with you, and just talk to the residents and make sure we're clicking off on those residents, right? Make sure we still have it. Make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay, real good then. If there are no more questions, gentlemen, we should at least start the process for the homeowners that are championing it. Since we already have the money into the report, we might as well reapproach those residents and see whether or not they'd like their road done. So, need a motion on resolution number 2023-13 as presented, please.
I'll make that motion to approve resolution 2023, lucky 13.
All right, real good. Kim?
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Rock?
Aye.
Councilmember Kiefer?
Aye.
Councilmember Tufti?
Aye.
Mayor Huber?
All right, thanks, Kim. Do we still got Brad? I think we still got Brad. Brad, you worn out yet? We got more for you.
I got one more.
Okay, you got one more in you. I'm glad to hear it. Excellent, excellent.
So tonight, I'm looking for a motion to approve Keats and Son for a roadway improvement project. Usually the pavement aprons that we've done in the past. We went out and got quotes. We received actually 2 responsive quotes, one from Shifty's and one from OMG. For roadway improvements, the roadway aprons on Keats Avenue at 67th Street, Jasmine Avenue at 65th Street, and 88th Street at Kimbro Avenue. I do understand I did talk to Ken Johnson earlier today, and he had mentioned that they had done all the gravel work over at Imperial Avenue, where there was some roadway that was failing their culverts, so the gravel work has been completed, but I would still recommend that we at least do the apron off 120th Street for Imperial Avenue. And then it was brought back to my attention earlier today that we did not complete 80th Street last year, and so I would recommend that we complete that apron from where they left off on 80th Street to the crest of the hill. So with that said, Shifty's bid for the work that we quoted was $52,000. I think with the gravel that we did as part of this project, we should have sufficient money in the bid to complete the rest of the apron on 80th Street. But again, I think we just, whatever the quantities are, we may overrun that a little bit, but I would suggest that we complete that portion of 80th Street. So with that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yep. Just real quick, Brad, I'm looking at these. Keats Avenue at 67th. The Jasmine Avenue one, I think we just had a small typo there. That's actually 63rd. Yeah.
63rd?
Yeah, it's just 63rd. I think we had a typo there because we were working on another one in another place on a 65th. So yeah, no big deal. 63rd on that one. 88th Street at Kimbro. The one on Imperial, I did go down and take a look at that one, talk to the contractors, and I'm hoping it's not a state secret here, and I should mention this, but I'm gonna. Delwood's doing some of their roads, and one of the best ways to pack and grade a street before you fix it is not using class 5 that turns into mud, it's using old asphalt because it doesn't hold water. And we have normally been accustomed to paying $350 to $380 a ton for that stuff, is what we have paid okay? Our contractors, the smart guys there, with lots of friends, made a deal with Knollwood and got all of that material for free. That's a good deal. We saved ourselves an awful lot of money on that, and my information is as well that they may even be storing some of that material for further improvements where necessary. For example, Ideal Avenue South, which is actually tailings.
Right.
Which is compressed tailings. So if we need repairs there, we'll have the compressed tailings without going out buying it for $3 a ton. I just want to say, nice job, contractors. Good job getting that done and getting that material in for free. The apron on 80th, yeah, there was a problem there. We had talked about that last year, and really our conversation probably got a little too in-depth, to be very, very honest, and probably my fault. What we were looking for is that to be paved down that hill so that our salt and sand would work better there, so that we were controlling water runoff. And we compared that project to the one on Jamaica Avenue South, where it comes from 75th up and over. So you don't see gravel coming down that forced by the rain or vehicles carrying gravel, because they put that apron on further, just like an apron on any of our gravel streets. So bringing that up and over the crest makes sense, and I apologize. I probably lost control of that conversation that time, and it got a little confusing. So what we're looking for here then is a special roadway improvement project vote. And Kim, is there a resolution on this one?
No,
I
just
didn't
looking for
think
a
so.
motion.
Yeah, just looking for a motion. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, and since we don't have any problem like we had last time, so we're going to the top of the hill, and we have 52,000, and I think I heard you say that you might have enough, so let's make sure we do. So maybe the council can authorize up to whatever over this.
Let's not authorize a number. Let's just tell them to get it done, because I don't want them to have problems like you had last time where you had $50,000 and you ran
Yeah, I know,
out.
but I don't wanna just authorize it. Yeah, I mean, we can guess at what that would be, but I don't wanna authorize anything. I mean, but, you know, I just thought we'd give it a number. If you don't wanna do a number, that's fine.
I
Mr.
don't-
Mayor, council members, may I just suggest a motion is made to approve the special roads projects, the bid from Shifsky's, with the addition of the completion of that apron.
There you
And no
go.
number, okay, it's whatever.
We'll look at the numbers next month when we get our bill list, and we can determine whether or not we've been robbed or not, though I very much doubt it.
I'm just
All of
kinda
our,
glad to see Shifsky's doing it. It's been a long time since I think we got a bid from them we used, isn't it?
his bids are getting a little more reasonable,
they
yeah,
are. They
yeah,
are.
they're kinda
Nice.
going down a little bit.
Nice.
It's good to see. So, that's the motion we're looking for, guys. Keats at 67, Jasmine at 63rd, 88th Street, Kimbro Avenue. So, basically, motion as suggested by the clerk with the addition of 80th Street. Do I have a first on that?
I'll make that motion.
All right, thank you,
I'll second it.
thank you.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Rock?
Aye.
Councilmember Kiefer?
Aye.
Councilmember Tufti?
Aye.
Mayor Huber?
Aye, thank you. Do I see Jennifer's name on here? Is Brad going off my television?
Yes.
Brad, thank you. Good job. Nice work. Jennifer, you are up. Our city planner, Jennifer Haskamp.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's me.
Hello, Jennifer.
Aye.
So before you this evening, you have a request for a conditional use permit at 8495 80th Street North. It is for a small-scale agricultural production operation, and also supporting their associated agricultural fence. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. It's a fairly short presentation this evening because it's pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead. All right, the good news is I can see your screen on my screen, so I can tell you can see it. So, hopefully we're gonna move, hold on, there we go. So the applicant this evening is also the owner of the property, that is she, her. The property again is at 8495 80th Street North. The property is zoned to A2 as guided rural residential agricultural. The lot size, if we look at the whole parcel, is approximately 9 acres, with approximately 5.6 acres proposed for the agricultural production of that field. The request this evening is to actually permit and protect the agricultural production on the site. So it is intended to try to memorialize the use of that portion of the property for agricultural use with off-site sales. And then also to construct an agricultural fence around the perimeter of that agricultural plot. The fencing that is proposed this evening is not what we traditionally look at. It's more of a deer fence, or some might even call it temporary fence. It doesn't have footings. So as a result, they're looking to kind of protect that agricultural plot. The public hearing was held on June 13th, and the planning commission did consider the request. So again, the protection of continued agricultural production is something that's a little bit unusual. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. And then to install a T-post agricultural fence is proposed to have those wires that extend between those posts to a height of 8 feet tall, which is why it is part of this application this evening. The operations that are proposed are obviously through our typical growing season, which of course in the summer seems to be a little bit longer each year. But essentially we're looking at field days Monday through Thursday. I'm sorry, that's a typo, Monday through Thursday, sun up to sundown. So just like most of our agricultural production, with farmers market days on Saturday and Sunday. So the intent in this case is that actually the product that's being grown on site is actually brought to the farmers market on weekends and sold off site. So they load the trucks up, bring them out to the farmers markets on weekends. So again, we did hold a public hearing at our planning commission meeting. Members of the public did provide public testimony. Most of their concerns were related to the quality or the design of the fencing, and also concern of just maintenance of that fencing that is proposed this evening. We'll look at that in just a little bit more detail. The planning commission also discussed the design of it as well, and had a recommendation with respect to how to address it, and then also talked about the location. So the way that it's proposed this evening is actually that it essentially is set back slightly from the side yard and also from the rear yard, but does not meet our full yard setbacks. So as a result, they're asking for some flexibility so that they can utilize the entire field area for the agricultural production. So after the public hearing was closed, the planning commission would discuss the public testimony. They proposed the following adjustments to the conditions that were drafted initially. So when the fence had to be set back consistent with the existing fence line, there was a fence that was on site that was set back or set off the property lines, and that a design plan for the actual fence would need to be confirmed with both the building official and the city engineer. The CUP, question. Okay, so there's a CUP criteria that obviously is in our ordinance. We take a look at this all the time. Section 32-141 establishes criteria for granting a conditional use permit. I mentioned this is a little unusual, but Section 32-345 actually establishes the city as a right to farm community, so that actually implies or states that essentially we allow agricultural production throughout the community in our A1 and our A2 zoning districts. Under certain circumstances, and a property owner can request that agricultural use be memorialized through a conditional use permit. While the language is not specific to what we're looking at here, I do understand that the applicant would like to secure it, partially because what's being proposed is actually surrounded by rural residential uses. As a result, they want to ensure that they continue to use this 5.5 acre portion of their property for agricultural production. And obviously, like all conditional uses, reasonable conditions, including site operations not addressed, can be included in terms of our conditional use permit conditions. So the property, for its recent past and currently was used for rural residential uses. It's my understanding that they have actually planted agricultural field for this growing season. There's an existing principal structure and barn that are located on the site. South half is an open field. That is the part that is proposed for agricultural production. There are no wetlands that appear on the NWI, which is our national wetland inventory. That doesn't mean that there wouldn't or couldn't be some pockets of wet areas out there, but they don't pop up on our national wetland inventory. And then adjacent properties are primarily used for rural residential uses. Just a quick aerial, because I think that describes it a little bit better. You can see that the property is the one that is identified with the red X. You can see that that whole southern area is relatively open, and that is the area that is proposed for the agricultural production as well as the fence. This is a site plan that shows you where the applicant is proposing to install the fence. So between the planning commission meeting and this meeting tonight, the applicant did provide an updated site plan. This is that. It shows that they are proposing to put a fence up approximately, actually, as this one is drawn, approximately 5 feet off the property lines. And you can see that those fence posts are set approximately 20 feet spaced apart. And then they have a wire, a barbless wire that connects the two posts. So I'll talk in just a moment about what the city engineer and the building official proposed, but this is what was, designed and submitted for review by the city engineer and the building official. So in our agricultural standards and parts of the code, it says that we need to have 5 acres of land to secure agricultural production, if you will. It doesn't distinguish between it, whether it's the whole parcel or whether or not it's 5 acres of agricultural land, but it does dictate that there's 5 acres. Obviously, all the other lot standards remain in place. I do want to call your attention just briefly to the fence standards. If it's determined that the fence standards that are in the code do apply to this type of fencing, which is certainly up to you in terms of whether or not you believe that or not, the way the code is written is that all fencing is permitted to be along property lines up to 6 feet. If you're proposing an 8-foot fence, which is what we're looking at here, that it has to be outside the side yard setbacks, which in this case are 20 feet, and you within 8 feet of the rear yard. So if the standard in its strict interpretation is applied, then those would be the setbacks. As proposed, the agricultural area is approximately 5.6 acres, exceeds the minimum. As a result, obviously that complies with the standard. All of the lot standards are met based on the existing conditions. In terms of the fence standards, section 32-315 deals with fences. It does not specifically address agricultural fencing. I bring that up only because this type of construction, this T-post construction, is fairly open. The posts don't typically have footings. As a result, when I talked to Jack about it, these haven't really come through the city very much. We've not really given them building permits in the past, and we know that they are all over the city in terms of this gear fencing that is put in place to protect agricultural crops. So from that perspective, we've not really looked at them as staff, so I just bring that up in terms of how we look at the code and how we're looking at what's being proposed this evening. As I mentioned, the strict interpretation of the code is enforced, then the fence would need to be at 20 feet on the side yards and 8 feet on the rear yard. Just a note that on the southerly line, which would be the rear yard in this case, there was an existing vegetative screen that was required as part of the school. I believe it was athletic field conditional use permit. So in terms of reference, there was a screen that was already proposed in terms of evergreens, and when you look at aerial, you can see that row of trees. So in terms of the fence detail, you can see that we've got the materials here. It might be a little bit blurry on your side, but just as reference, it shows the T-posts. Those would be sunk 2 feet into the ground with 8 feet above ground, and then the wires and the configuration from the manufacturer details coming through with the barbless wire that is shown on the bottom. So the planning commission recommended that both the building official and the city engineer take a look at the proposed design to make sure, since obviously the neighbors identified the look or the maintenance of this being critical to their comfort with it. So both the building official and the city engineer looked at the proposed plan. They came back with the following. The city engineer's recommendation was more restrictive than the building officials, so I would recommend going with the building or with the city engineer in this case. They said that the posts, Brad said the posts should be spaced no further than 12 feet apart from each other. The building official said that he believes that the 2-foot buried depth is adequate. It does not require footings and fairly low wind shear given the proposed design. So again, I mentioned the fact that we've got deer fencing all over the city. and all of it is kind of installed to our knowledge similarly. Once again, we've not issued building permits for it. However, if you look at what's around town, it appears that this is how they've installed it, which is consistent with the manufacturing details. And then finally, once again, we haven't in the past required a building permit, but that is not to say that for this particular conditional use permit, we could not require it and make that a condition of what we're looking at this evening. In terms of the operation, the applicant is proposing, they live at the property, it is homesteaded, all of their family members are only those that would be on site, there are no employees that are proposed as part of this operation. They've got their field days, they run 5 days Monday through Thursday. Again, Friday through Sunday, they do run the farmer's market, bringing that agricultural product to local farmers markets. There are no on-site sales proposed, everything is off-site, and there are no retail sales proposed. So in terms of the conditions that are passed on to you this evening, there's obviously a list of them, about 16. You'll note that on condition number 16, I did make an adjustment from the 15 feet of spacing to 12 feet of spacing based on Brad's recommendation, because that came in after the draft conditions. The building official had said 15 feet, so I brought that down slightly to the 12 feet, and all the other conditions are established. The way that the planning commission passed it on to you is that in terms of the setback for that fence line, is that it would have to follow the existing fence line that's out there, which is somewhere between 1 and 5 feet setback from the property line. So with that, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I would ask that you for any questions.
Jennifer, I didn't hear you mention when you were talking about the engineer for a second. The engineer had asked that the spacing on the post be 12 feet. Did the engineer agree with putting a post down 24 inches into the frost line?
So Brad, and I don't, it looks like Brad didn't get left us, but Brad did talk about whether or not, depending on if there were sturdier or more permanent posts that were put in the ground, that those would require footings. So like we talked about the corners, for example, requiring footings and making sure those go down to the frost footing of 42 inches. So again, this is where our ordinance is a little tricky because it doesn't contemplate this type of construction example, type. It basically talks about the type of construction where that we typically think of like privacy fences and those types of things, that all of the posts, because of the wind shear, require them to have very solid footings essentially, and this type of fencing doesn't really have that.
In this case, obviously, I'm not worried about wind shear. I am, however, quite concerned that with some spring heave, this fence is going to look like this pretty quick. No matter what kind of post you use, if you're not down 42 inches on every post, not just corner posts. If they go down 42 inches with a post and brace it on either side, it's probably going to work with this type of wire, but you're going to have heave at 24 inches badly. Mr. Rogg, do you want to go ahead and jump in here?
I do. So I know that there's an existing fence that's between 1 and 4 feet or 5 feet, whatever it is. I just don't think an 8-foot fence should be in the same as a lower fence. I just think we should stick with the 20 feet as it's stated. So that's one of the things that I was thinking of. Mm-hmm. The other thing I was thinking of is the property that is to the west. I was looking at it online, and it looks like it's a nice house. And I believe it's in the 1.8 million range, according to the Washington County website. So when you have this fence, and you've got people going to be there sun up to sundown, weeding, I think if you have it at 20 feet, you could require screening for that people next door for their pool and everything, because now you have people that will be there all the time.
Right. I'm not sure with the right to farm ordinance, John, you're going to be able to get that one by. The screening may actually, because of the right to farm ordinance, actually be kind of a duty maybe on the surrounding homeowners. I'm not sure. Jennifer can step in with that if she has any information you think may be helpful with John's suggestion there. I'm not disagreeing. We have a right to farm ordinance, gentlemen, and people should be able to do what they want with their lot. This is more intensive, and we're asking for an 8-foot fence, which we rarely do. The 8-foot fences that we have approved to this point are almost exclusively on county roads. On county roads for example, wineries and that type of thing is where we see these fences. So I'm a little hesitant to go with the recommendations of the PC here. Jen, what do you think? Requiring screening for this, is that something that would even be possible, or does our right to farm ordinance preclude that?
So Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I think this one's tricky, to be perfectly honest with you, from the standpoint of, they could farm it and put their 8-foot fence up, provided it meets the setback without a conditional use permit, and it wouldn't get in front of you.
Right.
So, I think their goal here is they'd like to protect, that agricultural right, which is why they're in front of you this evening, because, there's some concern that that might be infringed on in some way. And so, my answer is, I think it's tricky because really they have a right to farm this property based on our ordinance. And so, the screening of it, sort of is kind of intuitive to that part of the ordinance, if you will.
Yeah, I think that we also have a problem, and I want to talk to you at the end here about 32.315 when we're done here. Just have a quick conversation in front of the council. But, so the screening is going to be problematic. I think John brings up some good points about not replacing one fence, which is a residential type fence, with what is a farm fence, which is 8 foot. And having that on the line versus following our ordinance, which is always a defensible and good thing to do for neighbors and other folks, where fences located within the buildable area of a lot are 8 feet or more from the rear lot line, may be up to 8 feet in height. Okay, so following that may be the best way to go, and I think I have some sympathy toward that view. Jennifer, what are your thoughts on doing that? And as I understand it, these folks are in front of us, and I'll just restate it so I can understand it. These folks are in front of us today for the CUP for the express purpose of not really putting in an 8-foot fence, because they can. They're really here for the express purpose of putting that 8-foot fence on the property line.
Yes, and to protect agricultural production, which there is a section of our code that allows for that.
Sure.
The way that it's written is more about, whether there's intensive parts of what's going on in the agricultural production that they would like to protect. So it's a similar type of request from that perspective. And to be honest with you, I think we might face things like this in the future, from the standpoint of, since our code was originally adopted, the city really has transitioned to more of a rural residential, predominantly rural residential use. And we don't have a lot of agricultural production happening in a lot of areas. And so this sort of, I wouldn't call it a conflict because I think that's too strong of a word, but this relationship between agricultural production on smaller parcels and our rural residential uses, I would expect we might see requests like this in the future of wanting to protect that crop field, that agricultural production.
And again, I'd like to have just a quick conversation after we've gone through this process with the CUP about 32.315, the fence ordinance, and how we can approve that. Tom?
Yeah, we have a right to farm, not a right to fence. And come over to my house. I got some stuff that I'm worried about the deer getting at in the fence, and some stuff's in the yard. So it doesn't mean they can't farm the 20 feet along the side if we have the setback, we meet the setback. They can farm, they can plant stuff out there, raspberries, I don't know, we have a lot of farms out here, they don't have fences around them.
Yeah.
I'm not done.
Yeah.
All
Go
right,
ahead.
so
Go ahead.
anyway, so I think that's the key. I didn't hear anything about giving them a variance, so I'm not gonna give a variance for a side setback or a back setback. They can put their fence in. As to the screening, if you come over to see my fences, they're self-screened. The grapevines, the woodbine grows up it. They can plant grapevines on it if they want to. I really don't care. And then there was some comments about engineering, trying to keep their fence up. Well, if they're smart and they don't want to repair their fence all the time, they're gonna have some engineer tell them, we don't have to tell them, that you need to put the posts in and every 5th one needs to be cemented in so the thing doesn't collapse on them. That's not our problem. And then they have to put it up. So to the neighbors to the west, I understand they have a big house. First thing, if you look at the house, the other side, they planted a bunch of trees, and the other neighbor planted some trees. But you can't require the neighbor who's doing something that they can do to screen you just because you don't like it. You're in Grant. I got a cornfield right behind my house, and I planted some trees, but so I think that's not on them to do. So I agree with John. I think it should be, I think you mentioned, and Jeff did, I think it's gotta be the standard setbacks. I think the 8-foot fence is fine. They better figure out their own engineering. We could suggest, but if we need to require, then I'm not sure how that works. Because then we'd be involved with everything required, getting the building inspector involved, and that's fine, we can do that, but I don't know if we have to. So I think that's on them too, but I don't think I wanna give a variance on this, but wish them well, if they wanna farm, they can still farm the whole thing, they're just 20 feet along the sides, they're gonna have to put something else in that the deer won't eat. So, that's my comments.
Yeah, so, good point. Moving that into the normal setbacks does not preclude them from farming. It does not preclude them from doing whatever they'd like to do on their lot according to our laws. I will disagree with Tom on one point, is that we have building standards for a number of different things. And if the engineer is telling me they need to be down 42 inches, they need to be down 42 inches. And giving them a building permit would then give us some oversight on that construction process. I can't build my house however I like. If I don't go to state standards, electrical standards, HVAC standards, I'm not building the house. I'll be stopped by the building inspector. So, what we have so far, if I understand our discussion, gentlemen, looks like we're all on line with the 20 feet as stated, 32315B3, and per engineer build directions, which were the tougher build directions. I would also say that a building permit shall be procured for this fence, so that there is some oversight on the building of the fence. Again, when these have been done before, they've been on commercial sites, and we've had building permits in place on these things, right? Okay, so I would suggest that as well. Anything else that you gentlemen can think of regarding this fence, the setbacks, construction standards, anything else coming to mind?
Well, just addressing screening, I think it'll self-screen. I think they'll plant stuff, they'll plant apple trees.
Of course.
There'll be vines growing up the wires.
Yeah, it's grand. Every weed grows here. Look at my yard. So,
I don't want to.
so yeah, I know, that's why we're screened. 20 foot off the line then, building permit per engineer build instructions. Jennifer, is that pretty clear, or are we missing some stuff that you'd like us to talk about?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I know you covered it.
Okay, very good. Let's talk real quick then about 32315. Do you have specific changes you'd like to see there, or are you looking for this council to grant a moratorium on these, on fencing overall? I mean, what are we looking at here? You kind of advise. You're the smart one here.
What?
Mr. Mayor, me?
Yeah, you.
Wait a minute.
Trust me, you're the smart one here.
Maybe I wanted to talk.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I don't think we need a moratorium, and I don't think that, but I do think it's something that we should address, moving forward, because I don't think that, we've run into this a couple of times. I actually, the last time I remember it was actually about I think it was a commercial horse boarding facility that we had the same, like, these standards are here, but they're not really about the types of use we're talking about. So I think it's clarifying those standards that are easier to make sure that they reflect what we actually want them to. And maybe we can conclude that actually they're fine the way they are, but I think it warrants a discussion, probably with the council in the future. So I don't think we need to have that tonight, but I do think, and I don't think we need a moratorium. This has come in the 10 years, 11 years I've worked here, this has come up, that I can recall 4 times maybe, 3 or 4 times in 11 years.
Great, so will you then discuss this at the meeting of the professionals, at the after meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, sorry to shock you with that moratorium word, I wasn't sure. Sorry I threw it out there. You looked a little shocked. So, gentlemen, it looks like we have come to an agreement on this fence, if we're all still there. Regular setbacks, engineer build directions, and a building permit. Does that encompass our discussion here?
Yeah, only question I would have too is, that's not what the planning commission said. We got a resolution here. That may not be what, we've had this conversation before, I don't know why, but, it's not what they may want. So we can approve it with something they may not want, but we still approve it. I think that's our standard. If that's what we do, they don't like it, then they could say something, but I think we've done it before.
Yeah, we're
And
adding.
the attorney's not here, so. I
We're
don't-
adding to their conditions as always.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah,
and we're
that's how
changing,
we always do it.
we're changing condition.
Right.
They they wanted it on the property line, we're not giving it to them on the property line, so that's the way it goes. We approve it, we move forward, if they don't like it, then that's the way it goes.
Well, I mean, is there anything to approve if we're saying you gotta follow the ordinance?
Watch Kim.
Mr. Mayor, council members, absolutely, you can, approve this resolution with revisions, the 3 added conditions and strikeouts of what the PC said were their setbacks.
Do you mean the same thing we've done for the last 15 years?
Right.
Is that what you're proposing right now?
It's as revised.
Holy moly.
And my point is, we can deny it with their conditions, or we can approve it with our conditions, that's what I was trying to say, so that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I would recommend you approve
Yeah,
it.
yeah, that's what we always do, yeah.
I'm glad we had that discussion.
It
so we
is,
can
well,
do
it's
what we
good,
always
because then
do.
people listening can hear it, and the applicant would probably like to hear it.
Okay, so, let's go ahead and get a motion to approve it, based upon the following modifications, which we have just discussed, and I'm sure Kim has written down.
Yes.
Hold on,
we have
I
Go
think,
ahead, John.
should we also require that the existing fence be taken down?
We are not here to enforce existing code, because that's kind of not
Okay.
where
I'm just-
we
I'm
where
just-
we are
I'm
in the
just-
process. It's a great question. It's a great question to condition a building permit upon that, but we're really not here in this case to do that.
All
But approving this with the planning commission's recommendations,
Okay.
as well as our modifications, that's how we do it. That's how we've always done it.
Okay,
And the applicant knows now, because we said so. There we go.
Well, if the applicant thought that the planning commission was gonna approve it, they should have called someone.
So, Mr. Mayor, we're looking for motion.
Yep,
on,
motion as stated, gentlemen. Entertain a motion. As stated, planning commission plus the additions that we made, changes and additions that we made. Go ahead, gentlemen.
I will move to approve this with the additional motions, or additional conditions that we put in.
Good. Got a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Mr. Tufty.
Councilmember Carr,
Aye.
Councilmember Rogg,
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer, Councilmember Tufti,
Aye.
Mayor Huber.
Aye. Jennifer, I look forward to hearing your recommendations on this ordinance. Hopefully we can hear those from you maybe next month, you think?
Mr.
We're
Mayor,
gonna have a pending, well, no, actually, I think we will
No.
have a pending meeting,
No.
but
Too bad.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was hoping to get them done. You know, moving forward. Moving forward. Can't move forward.
Mr. Mayor,
I guess.
council members, any changes to that ordinance and the standards would require a public hearing, just like all your other ordinance revisions, so it would go to the PC, I'm assuming.
Yep, but we look at it, right? We get
Well,
to
of
see
course you
it.
look at it.
Yeah, that was my question.
But in the past, we've had little work sessions to talk about these ordinances. Do you guys want to provide some direction via email?
Sure.
Or a survey like,
Or a
Yeah,
survey?
send out another survey. People
was
can
good.
answer
Hey,
a
that
survey.
works slick, for those of you that answered it.
Yes,
On time?
that sounds good. I like it. Let's move on here and get out of here. City attorney is not with us tonight, no action items. 2024 budget work session. Kim, do you have something in mind, since we're gonna have that public, or that assessment hearing next month?
Mr. Mayor and council members, I would recommend you do as you typically do. You take about an hour prior to your regular August meeting. And then if you want another hour before the September meeting, which at the September meeting is the time you adopt the preliminary budget and preliminary levy. In December, you do the final. As you well know, you can go down, but you can't go up.
That's the first, right?
August 1st.
So
Well, and our
five,
meeting is five, yeah, so an hour before.
yeah, so 5:30.
John's got his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Was just wondering if we, from the word moratorium, which we had on storage, I think we all had input, when do we kind of review that?
Yeah, and so if Jennifer were to come forward with that,
Oh,
when do we review that?
Yep.
As Kim just kind of laid out the process, we would hear some stuff on it first. We'd probably get a memo from Kim or Jennifer.
Okay.
And then it would go to the planning commission for them to flesh it out.
Okay.
And then it would come here, and we would make the final decisions, of course, in conjunction with the staff.
Gotcha. Okay, I was just seeing that we have something Washington code violation.
Yeah, no, definitely, you're definitely gonna have some input, so we don't get kind of blindsided at anything. So are we all good with that then, August 1st at 5:30? Is that good for our budget meeting? Tom, you good?
Sure, yeah, if I don't have my calendar. I'm
Jeff,
sure
you
it'll
good?
be fine.
I think John might be the
John?
one that might be.
Yeah, you might have kid duty.
Kind of
Who
running
knows
tight.
what our kids are doing?
Might have kid duty.
Let's see. I did today. August 1st. I don't have anything.
Excellent.
Sounds,
We've got
sounds
ya.
fine.
Throw us in and we got you for that budget meeting. Let's get it figured out. Okay, let's move on. Kim, we have an updated joint powers authority with Washington County 2024 elections.
Mr. Mayor and council members, the current GPA Joint Powers Agreement with Washington County around the elections had expired. They sent out a new one for the 2024 elections, keeping in mind there's an extra election because the state of Minnesota chose to be a primary state, presidential primary. So before you is the new Joint Powers Agreement shows the changes, and I just need a motion to approve that.
Gentlemen,
Motion to approve.
do we have a second? Joint powers agreement by Mr. Tufty, seconded.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogg?
Aye.
Councilmember Gifford?
Aye.
Councilmember Tufti?
Aye.
Mayor Hubert?
Aye. Kim, any updates?
None.
Jennifer?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the audit. No, I do have a couple of council or staff updates. If in fact that we are going to start some work on your fencing ordinance, would you like to include in that time looking at your sign ordinance?
Tell us why you think looking at the sign ordinance is a good idea.
I think it is because it's about 14 pages long. It's very confusing. People really can't read that and know what kind of signs are allowed and what needs permitting. That being said, you've had that sign ordinance for quite some time. Jack is good at kind of deciphering that. So if you would not like to take the time or dollars to look into it, that's fine with me. It's a mess.
I, for one, do not like residents or businesses who have to decipher, because it's difficult to order signs, it's difficult to emplace them if you're trying to decipher an ordinance. But you end up working with the or not with the planning commission, with the a building inspector to have him kind of tell you what you need, and that's cumbersome. What do you guys think?
Yeah, clear is better.
Yeah.
Clear's better.
Yeah, absolutely. Clear's better.
Bob?
Clear's better.
So should we add that to the discussion that the staff will have regarding fences, and they'll also discuss the signage ordinance?
I generally prefer confusion, but
Yeah. An obfuscation. I
Well, you
think
keep
that's
them on their
the.
toes that way.
Okay, we're gonna go for
Self-selected.
clear.
Okay, we'll start the discussion at a staff level.
Yes.
It has come to my attention that the Matamidi School District is having an election in November, so we need to change our November meeting to, our November meeting would have been on November 7th. I am suggesting we move it to Monday, the night before, November 6th, a Monday night. As we know, we can't have public meetings during an election.
Yeah.
Wait.
Say the day again, the first, the Monday the first?
No, Monday, November 6th.
No, pardon me,
That's the first Monday of the month, the election day being the 7th.
7. Gotcha.
That's okay. I mean, it starts at 6:30, sunsets at 5 something. Okay, that's fine.
Others?
One last thing.
One last thing, guys.
You guys have done a lot of work at your town hall and improved it immensely. Since I now have somebody that will put new improved shades up, would you guys like me to order some shades that are a little bit more insulating and a little bit more color coded and will help with people looking in the windows and terms, you have a lot of video.
How about
in here.
provide security for all the stuff you see in here?
You got money in the budget?
you know,
Too
we
easy.
don't want people hiding out in the woods.
There's
with
typically
cameras.
$1,000 in the town hall, yeah.
Improvement, yeah, I know we had that in there. Thought we had
I don't need a
25.
motion or anything, I just wanted to know if you guys were okay with that.
You're so directed to pick up some shades and have Kim to put them in.
Okay,
Make sure
Thank
they're
you.
lovely shades, though.
Oh, they will be.
Lovely. We want lovely. All right?
that's all I
Question
ask.
for you, since we're talking about elections, what's the cheapest special election the city could hold? If someone unfortunately passed away or something, we had to hold a special election to fill a seat. Just answer the question as stated, please.
Whatever it is for the county to run that election.
About $45,000?
You get charged per precinct.
Right.
And it was like 9,000 per precinct, so it would be the same charge.
Okay. And what's our normal general elections? What does normally that bill come in at?
The same,
Same?
about 9,000 per precinct.
Well, how many precincts do we have? I don't know.
We now
off the
have
top of my-
two.
We know two, that's what I thought. I thought we went 40,000 last time. Why do we remember 40,000? Was that a presidential election year or something?
I don't
Doesn't
remember that
have a
figure.
familiar- Okay, real good. So 18,000. Real good. And we're done there. Time for city council updates. Gentlemen, Tom.
Well, I was gonna do something in June, send something to Kim. We got that policy that we have about not talking to the staff, which I think is onerous, and, but I don't wanna get rid of it, but I think we just had to modify it. So I sent something to Kim, I was gonna bring in June, then we have a June meeting, then I forgot it. I've got some handouts, pictures and color pictures with arrows on the back of each one. Allison's restaurant. Anyway, but I think I got some language. It's pretty simple. I'm not really asking to change the whole thing, but I talked about it before. So if we want to put that on the agenda, I can send it to Kim. She can send it to you or put it in your packet, and we can see what you think. It's just the one paragraph.
Who wants to look at it? Aye.
Okay. All right.
You wanna look at it? Aye. On next agenda, take a look at the language, tighten it up. It's a little tough. City council reports, future agenda items. I don't have anything else. Jeff? Oh, wait a second, I did have one. Mr. Schaefer was a little bit upset about not being the fire warden anymore. Mr. Schaefer, keep in mind, I should tell you, I'm only one person. There's 5 of us up here, so when a vote's taken, I would assume that people vote because they feel a certain way. And in terms of why I voted, you imputed a motive, so I'll go ahead and tell you my motive. You walked away, you quit. How did I know you wouldn't quit being a fire warden when that got uncomfortable? I didn't. That's why you're no longer the fire warden, because I found you to be unreliable. Apparently 4 other people did too, because it wasn't a split vote. So unreliability, especially when someone tries to trigger a special election to the tune of $18,000, instead of let the process play out, you tried to time it. So we had to have a special election, which you've admitted to helpfully. So, unreliable is why I made that vote. I was looking for reliability. So now you know why I made that vote, and you don't need to guess anymore. Okay? Real good. Who would like to read our community calendar? I think it's John or Jeff. No, it's Jeff. It's Jeff. I know it's Jeff.
All right, Matamita Public Schools Board meeting Thursday, July 13th and July 27th. Matamita District Education Center, 7 p.m. Stillwater Public Schools Board meeting Thursday, July 13th, Stillwater City Hall, 7 p.m. Washington County Commissioners meeting Tuesdays, Government Center, 9 a.m.
Perfect. Who would like to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Mr. Tufty, you're on top of this stuff.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Rock?
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer?
Aye.
Councilmember Tufti?
Aye.
Mayor Huber?
Aye.
Everyone have a happy and safe 4th of July.
You too. Don't blow off anything important. That's the key.
That's what my mom told me when I was young.
Yep. Don't blow up your fingers. Dang it.